Gundam Seed is back with a brand new movie, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Freedom. And the best aspect about a brand new Gundam anime means brand new GUNPLA. This unit right here is taken point on the releases, and this is the high-grade Rising Freedom Gundam, an absolutely fantastic Gundam with one fairly large, glaring issue. Now I'm going to leave mentioning the issue till last, and I'm going to talk about all the good stuff first, because in a way, the good stuff totally eclipses the bad. First off, aesthetically, this is one beautiful Gundam. No matter what pose you put it in, no matter what light you put it in, no matter where you display it, this looks incredible. It's so much fun to pose, and no matter what pose you put it in, it's just so absolutely perfect. Bandai has taken what has always made the Seed kits, especially Freedom and the Strike Freedom, and made it even better. Well, better for high grade. Build-wise, you get plenty of plastic inside of this box, and at 2,600 yen, it is a little bit on the pricey side for a high-grade kit, but it does reflect the amount of plastic parts you do get inside of this box. Half the build is the mobile suit itself, and half the build are those ridiculous, awesome wings. When it comes to the accessories inside this box, you get everything you could ever need for a Gundam. That of course is the full loadout of swords, board and beam rifle, as well as a few nice extras as well. Everything works perfectly, holds perfectly, but has the same glaring issue that I did mention earlier on. Next up, when it does come to the articulation, that is this shining beacon of awesomeness at the core of this kit. It's a rock solid plastic on plastic build, and the articulation in here is incredible. If you're coming from older Seed kits, this will blow your mind. If you're coming from the high-grade Witch from Mercury kits, this is that bit even better, with some great engineering at the heart of all of its movement. Finally then, this is a kit that does pack in a transformation as well, a simple enough one, but if you like kits that transform, especially into a bird mode style mobile armor, then this is something you will truly love. However, winding back to that big glaring issue, and it's a big glaring issue, this kit has so many stickers that for a 2024 kit, that is ridiculously awful. But it's still somehow a platinum tier kit. Why exactly is that? Well, let's find out. Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at this right here, the high-grade Rising Freedom Gundam from the new Gundam Seed movie. As usual, I got mine right here through Hobby Link Japan. You can too, and the link is down there in the description. Now let's check it out. It pretty much goes without saying that this right here, the high-grade Rising Freedom, is an absolutely phenomenal looking GUNPLA. It feels phenomenal too. No matter what lighting this is in, no matter where you put it, no matter what pose you put it in, it always looks fantastic all of the time. But that does not mean it isn't a Gundam kit with a massive flaw that is either huge or not so huge depending on your own outlook. So in order to talk about that a little bit and to talk about this in a little bit more depth, I'm going to wind it back towards the build. Now when this came in the door, I was actually building the high-grade Dendrobium, which is a legendary GUNPLA. It's taken a little bit of time, it's absolutely cool. It's a kit with a bunch of screws in it, and usually when there's screws in a kit I don't like them. It also has metal plates throughout its build, and all I can say so far is I'm loving that. So the review of that will be coming up sometime in the future, but once this came in the door, this got the priority. So the high-grade Rising Freedom retails for 2,640 yen, or €18 or about $19 from Hobby Link Japan. Now this is a whole lot more expensive than what we would have seen from the last line of kits, which is the Witch from Mercury, where you could pretty much slash 1,000 yen off the price of them compared to this kit. But that is because inside of this box you get a ton of plastic, and Bandai, they price by the amount of parts you get. Inside of here you get 10 runners of plastic, which is absolutely huge, but that's not the only thing that's absolutely huge. This. Now I knew this was coming. I saw it all over social media before this kit dropped, and yeah, what can I say? This is incredibly bad. By 2024 standards, ridiculous. But is this right here, this amount of stickers, a deal breaker? Definitely not. The vast majority of these are from the wings, so the mobile suit goes relatively unscathed. And there's a lot of people out there, me included, who believes this kit actually looks better without the stickers, without that color entirely. This right here is what the metal robot spirits will look like. This is what the high grade looks like, and I feel it's a little bit over designed with all of that white. But then again, that is a subjective opinion, and I also have to say that that just makes this kit not color accurate, which undeniably is a massive down point. But besides that, this is an absolutely fantastic build. Now, depending on where you're coming from, this will definitely give you a different perspective of what sort of kit this is. Now, if you've been building just seed kits, this is a massive upgrade. It feels so much nicer, it feels great. It feels like it took what we saw with the high-grade Justice and its fantastic shoulders, and what we would have saw with the awesome high-grade Force Impulse, and they just improved on all of that. But if you're coming over from the high-grade Witch from Mercury kits, this does feel somewhat a little bit like a downgrade. First off, there is no full inner frame inside of this. This is very classic. However, it is not too classic because there are no poly caps in here. It's plastic on plastic, but for the most part it's just armor sections, joints, armor section, joints. That sort of old school kind of way. The parts all cut out quite cleanly. The blue and the navy blue, they do mark a little bit, but it's easy to clean up. And overall, it was a very enjoyable build. The only thing that was a little bit on the difficult side was the V-fin. The V-fin has a little red section in the center of it, which it's absolutely tiny. Now, when it comes to stuff like this, I always have a bit of a tip. That is, get yourself some blue tack. Stick it on the end of something like a file like this right here. Even a pencil would probably do. Attach the piece onto it and use that to attach it in. It's just so much easier than trying to line it up using your fingers. This works every time. It's a great tip. Try it. But yeah, the parts layering, very nice. The joints are very nicely designed, and the only real issues we have is when we flip around to that backpack. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit right here on Bandai's side. If this was parts separated anymore, this would be awful. Have you ever built the real grade Freediom Gundam and the wings just fall apart all the time? That is what would have happened. These are so nicely designed, the way they sandwich together. There's so many parts in these wings. The wings are almost half the kit when it comes to building. If there was any more in there, it would have taken away from its integrity. It's a little bit sad that we don't have the extra colors, but the wings themselves physically are absolute perfection. Once you've snapped this entire thing together, what you get in the end is mind-blowing, even if it is not 100% color accurate. Now let's check out the looks. So it's about time we got into those fantastic aesthetics, and I'm going to start off without the backpack as usual, just so we can take a look at the actual mobile suit itself. This has the standard backpack adapter double peg slot, so it does mean it should be usable with pretty much all the packs that are out there. Well, the ones that use those double peg adapters. And this right here is what it looks like. It is 100% incredible. Like I mentioned, there is a lot of stickers for this kit, but not many are actually for using on the mecha itself. This just looks so good. All the individual angles, the details, it all looks so good. The colors, the distribution, the pan lines, everything is both majestically anime accurate, but at the same time nice and detailed for a high grade too. Zooming in on the head there, and it just looks so good. They've used a very subtle grey compared to what we would have seen on the standard Freediom, and overall the visage there has that threatening Gundam look that has a little bit of freedom and a little bit of impulse in there as well. Now, speaking about this head right here, like I mentioned, depending on where you're coming from will definitely affect your perspective on this. If you've been building other high-grade seed kits, then this is just like those, but with the fantastic detail dialed up. However, but if you are coming from some of the small-scale plastic masterpieces that were the Witch from Mercury line, this might feel a little bit nerfed. For example, we don't have the same sort of part separation we would have seen on some of those kits. Some of those kits had straight-up full-eye color separation. Not all of them, some of them, but the parts separation in general on those kits was a little bit more impressive than what we're seeing here. I will mention that there are clear parts underneath the head cameras there and the eyes underneath the stickers in a, if I'm not mistaken, a standard clear. So if you wanted to try and paint them up and keep them clear, you could do that. Moving through the list now, and when it does come to the colors on this, the colors are great. We've got a nice white, a blue, a red, a light gray, and a dark gray. We've got one pop of yellow that is on the V-fin in the middle there, and all of these plastics seem to have the same kind of finish, which is a very glossy kind of look to it. Overall, Bandai didn't move too far from what a seed high grade looks like, which is a good thing. When it comes to unique plastics or colors or anything like that, anything pearlescent, metallic, etc., there's nothing like that on this particular kit. When it comes to the mold lines and the nubs, I did notice it was nubbing a little bit while I was cutting it out, but when you actually assemble it, most of those get hidden. They're either towards the back or they're underneath another part, which isn't so bad. Mold lines, however, there are quite a few, mainly because a lot of parts are kind of molded in big pieces, so we've got some down on the ankle armor right there, which is fairly noticeable, and the usual one up on the thigh armor. When it comes to seam lines, as in the gaps between different plastic parts, there really isn't anything here per se, not on the unit itself. Bandai's really gotten around to designing mobile suits so that the parts don't actually show like that. For example, the usual one they have on the side of the head now just looks like part of the design, like part of the face venting. It does go up the side of the head in that classic kind of way, but not the worst, not at all. Overall, looking pretty good. Jumping now into that full 360-degree spin, so you can see every angle of this itself, and it looks ridiculously good. The angles are perfect. This has been designed so well. It's really been kind of like the amalgamation of a lot of nice seed kits attached together. There's a little bit of Impulse in there, a little bit of Destiny, a little bit of Freedom. There's just so much mishmash together in a very nice way. Getting the backpack onto it, and this really does get the full effect going. This is probably the nicest looking seed backpack I've ever seen. They've taken the Freedom feel and they've just kind of made it more pointy, streamlined, and cool. It's a lot easier to actually move around. Touching it's a little bit better, and overall it just has such a dynamic flair to it. Like I mentioned, this is such a nice kit. I'm going to show it in a whole bunch of different lights right now just so you can see. No matter what, it always looks good. Sometimes I find a kit might look good in the hand, but you can't get good footage or a good picture of it because essentially it's not that really great looking. But this right here, no matter what light, whatever pose, it always looks so good. It may not have some crazy details like we would have seen on some of the Witch from Mercury kits, but this has it where it needs it, and the articulation is so perfect that you can eke out the nicest, most organic, most over-the-top poses out of it. So overall, it is definitely 100% a winner in the looks department. Even though it's meant to have a whole load of stickers, but just to kind of double down on how not really important these are the stickers that I use. Just these ones up here. That is all, no more. These ones as well, just that little batch right here. And the only reason I use these ones up here is because they're too recessed really for when you're actually going to be doing it later. These are for on these little flip out sections right here. See that little bit of white? That is all it's off, and this blends in very nicely. You would not even notice. But besides that, I didn't use the stickers and it looks so good. So now on to a little bit of a size comparison, and there it is beside the high grade RX-78-2 Beyond Global. So when it comes to the actual lore about this version of the Freediom right here, this is meant to be a little bit more compact than the original Freediom Gundam, so it is a little bit shorter than your average Gundam by the looks of things. So now speaking of the Freediom Gundam, when it comes to high grades, there are a few versions out there of it. I've got the standard high grade Freediom as well as the high grade Freediom Revive, so I'll grab both of those. One of them is up here in the Meteor unit, so if you want to see a review of the Meteor unit, you can check that out. And of course, there's a review of the Revive as well. So first off, there is the older version of the high-grade Freediom. So that one is very small. The scale is completely off. I'm not sure if it's meant to be 1/44th scale, but it sure as hell isn't. And trying to squeeze that one in there, there is the Freediom Revive. So overall, this is it's definitely a leaner, more compact sort of kit in all the right sort of ways. It still has big flared out shoulders, massive wings, and overall looks awesome. One hell of a seat design right here. So of course this right here is not the same mobile suit as the other two Freedoms. The other two Freedoms are the same mobile suit. This is a brand new mobile suit that's been designed and, well, I suppose developed in universe in the actual Seed movie, Seed Freediom. However, it is nice to see what Bandai has done between kits and how far they've come since something like the high-grade Freediom over there on the left. That one is just so simple in comparison to what we have now. Bandai keeps pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Also a bit of a zoom in on the face there so you can kind of see the details as well. This is usually the most detailed aspect of a Gundam model kit, so you can see side by side where Bandai has come from. I'll throw the date of when that original high-grade kit came out, when the Revive in the middle came out, and of course this just came out in January 2024. So once again, Bandai always pushing the envelope, and this does look astounding. So now moving on to a few more size comparisons. There it is beside the high-grade aerial rebuild, high-grade Gundam Calibarn. No! Fucking back-heavy wings too wide. Let's try that one more time. High-grade aerial rebuild, high-grade Gundam Calibarn, high-grade Gundam Schwarzette, high-grade Alice Gundam, high-grade Gundam Exia, high-grade Gundam Kyrios, high-grade Gundam Maxter, high-grade Engage, high-grade Gundam Barbatos, real-grade Destiny Impulse, real-grade Gundam Epion, and finally, the real-grade Sazabi. So now jumping into the accessories, and here's everything that comes with the high-grade Rising Freediom. This is the usual loadout of swords, board, and beam rifle, and a couple of other things. The swords are a pair of beam sabers, the board is the flash edge shield boomerang, and the beam rifle is the high-energy beam rifle. As for the other extras we have in here, we've got some nice pink beam effect parts, we've got a part for using with the arms to emit a beam shield, and finally we have a bit of a base adapter for the transformed mobile armor mode and one alternate left hand. So first up, before I take a look at anything that actually comes inside this box, I will mention that this is a back-heavy kit, so most of the time it will fall backwards. You can actually make it stand upright, you just kind of have to have wings a little bit forward like so, and you will make it stand up, but it can be a little bit awkward at times, and while trying out the accessories, it will just fall over. So I'm just gonna attach it onto this ride here, which is Good Smile Company's Simple Stand, and let's move on from there. So moving on to the hands, and first off we've got a standard pair of holding hands with a block hole in them that look like this. Fairly average, fairly normal, and do exactly what you need them to. These hold on via the usual ball joints, pop them off just like so. The alternate hand we have in here is a left-handed widespread open hand. There's a nice close look at it so you can see it for yourself. Plain enough for the most part, but it's always nice to have one of these included. Especially when you're going to be holding most weapons with the right hand, it's cool to have something dynamic that adds a little bit more life to the kit than the usual block hands. Looking good. Next up in here, we've got the pair of Vershina beam sabers. The beam here is your standard beam. The handles are actually quite nice. They've got some nice lining in them. When you actually line those up, they look pretty cool. And in the usual seed kind of way, you can connect these end to end just like that, Darth Maul style. Getting these attached into the hands is super simple. It's just slide them down into the hands like so. No need for actually disassembling the hands, and you can do this reverse grip as well, so you can get this into some ridiculously dynamic poses. This is one of those kits with that no matter what weapon you put in its hands, it looks phenomenal. I didn't even try too hard to get this into a pose that's that interesting. It just falls into them. It's one impressive kit. It's seed through and through, done perfectly. Impressed. And like we've already seen, you're actually able to attach these end to end, but it's nice to see that done in the hand as well. So they just attach on so simply, just like so. And that is what it would look like when attached into the hand in that almost beam glaive kind of way. That is badass. When these are not in use, to store them, you just pop them out of the hand like so, pop off the beams, and these can be attached onto the side skirts. These attach on quite well, they just click into place, they don't feel like they're going to fall off like some high-grade seed kits, and that is what they look like attached. Now, I will mention, while I was looking at these to see the kind of, when I was looking in the manual to see the orientation these are meant to be stuck in, I did see that the lower section of these does need to be in a kind of grey, like that little circular ring there, towards the non-business end. That is meant to be in grey. There is not a sticker included, so you'd have to paint that yourself for it to be color accurate. But still, incredibly, incredibly nice. So the next weapon we have in here is the high energy beam rifle. At first glance, this is extremely, extremely nice looking. I will mention I did paneline this just like I did with the rest of the kit, but there is, once again, one or two issues with it. Let's talk about the good first. This is nicely color separated into white and grey. What I really like is that wire coming through from the grey section onto the surface, really breaking up the white. We do have a sticker for the lens there, but as you can see, it's not just the lens, it's also a blue bit around the outside, so it doesn't look that great. And as you can see from this image right here, there is meant to be a lot of blue on the beam rifle, especially on the upper barrel there and around near that wire, which we do not have in plastic on this kit, but there are stickers included. Getting this weapon attached into the hand is the usual sandwich routine. That means you just open up the hand like so, like two slices of bread, flop this right into the hand like this, and flop is a bad word because it holds in perfectly. It's the ham, slap the two bits of bread back together, and there you go. The hand is a sandwich, and it holds onto that weapon perfectly. Pop it into the wrist, and this has no issue holding it up whatsoever, and this, even without the stickers, is a very clean, nice looking beam rifle, and I'm definitely digging that rectangular barrel. Unique. Nice. But yeah, if you did not know this was meant to be in multiple colors, honestly, it would look phenomenal, and that tends to be the case with a lot of this kit. Sure, it's lacking some colors, but Bandai lacked them in such a way that it still looks fantastic. Also, with the posability and the articulation on this, you can get such over-the-top poses. I love posing this thing. Sure, We may have lost some colors, but this thing still looks killer regardless. Also, when this is not in use, you can store it on the unit by popping out the hand like so and just attaching it via a simple peg onto the butt flap just like so. Nice and fairly out of the way. So the next accessory we have in here is the shield, which is called a flash edge. Now, for the most part, this seems to have escaped from the color accuracy woes we would have seen across the board so far. This little vent right here, that's meant to be in the navy blue, but otherwise this is quite nice. Get back here. Around the back we do have some nice panel lining opportunities. It's mostly in white. I assume that handle little section right there is meant to be in grey. The only moving aspect we have is this right here, which is a ball joint, so that attaches it into the arm. And when I say only one, I mean around back, because there's quite a few moving bits. We have these little sections here which pop out just like so for making this into a boomerang, but they are a little bit on the floppy side. I actually thought these would like click into place, but they don't. They feel a little bit funny. Now we do have a little bit of a sliding mechanism right here, which opens up just like so, but I'm pretty sure that this is actually for the mobile armor mode, so we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. Attaching this on is pretty cool because it's not usual that we see a seed kit with this kind of gauntlet with the beam shield in it have an actual shield that pops on over it. It attaches on fairly simply like so. It's just a peg into a holder. It holds on quite well, and for the most part it does look really good until you try to get it into a pose. So these bits I think are held in by C-clips, which automatically are just quite weak. So just tapping it or moving it and these little bits flip out. Once again, they don't seem to click ever into any sort of position, which is a little bit on the lousy side. When you do get it in a pose, it does look nice, but it is a little bit sad that sometimes those parts might droop out just like it's happening right now. A weird little bit of an oversight right here. So now it's about time to add the shield boomerang aspect to the flash edge, and that just involves attaching some parts on. We do have some beam effect parts in here. We've got this pointy one for up top, it's fairly standard looking, and we've got these ones from the sides that remind me a little bit of what you'd see in the blades of some seed swords or up in the wings on some of the Fat Tomb backpacks. Now the same issues kind of keep going on here. Once you have these attached on, still the same floppy wings, but one thing I think is really dumb is that in the manual it says that this model is compatible with the Action Base 7 sold separately. One of those grabby hand adapters on it. That kind of thing is, well, isn't everything technically compatible with one of those? My fucking lens cap is compatible with one of those. It's not really a selling point. But yeah, you just pop it on in here, you kind of just shove the little grabby arm bits underneath the floppy wings, and that is what you get. So that is the Flash Edge Beam Boomerang. It's kind of a cool concept, but in essence it doesn't work that well, and a little bit on the half-baked side. It's alright, it's good. It gets the job done. So it wouldn't truly be a Seed Destiny kit without a beam shield, and here it is. We do have the one. It's much nicer than what we would have seen with the recent Build Metaverse kit, and it does pretty much the exact same kind of thing. So getting this attached just involves popping off either of these red caps that are on the forearm, so that means you can use it on the left or right arm. These are a little bit hard to remove, so I do recommend using a part separator. Then you attach the red piece onto the beam shield the usual way, and then slap it onto the back of the forearm just like so for a nice beam shield. I decided to put it on the other arm just so you can see what both shields on at the same time look like, and like I said, you can use it on either or arm, but there's only one included inside of the box. This is in a nice pearlescent blue and does look quite fancy. So lastly in here we've got this little bit here. This is a little adapter for using in the mobile armor mode, so we'll do that in a little while. First off, let's do the articulation. So now moving on to the articulation, and for the most part, actually for the whole part, this is rock solid plastic on plastic. This will not move at all. This is such a nice kit, and anything we would have seen before, say with other versions of the Freediom, like the wings being a bit janky, these are not jank. They're quite thin, which does mean they don't add a ridiculous amount of weight, but in general, they just aren't a pain in the hole, and that is majestic for a Freediom or a Strike Freediom style kit. Anyway, let's test it out. So getting this into the usual pose, and just to kind of harken back to a thing I've mentioned throughout the review a little bit, I've compared this time and time again to the Witch from Mercury kits. The one thing I'll say about this is this has more intricate articulation than those kits do, hands down. First off, we do have a really cool dropping mechanism in the hips. This is very simple, it's not the usual style. Here's what it looks like when I was actually building it. So it is a literal sliding up and down peg section in the leg, which gives you a little bit more so you can kick legs up to the front and back. And in the end, this is what I got out of the pose. So it's a more intricate set of joints than something we would see on the Witch from Mercury kit. So even though this may not look as fancy, what it's got under the hood is in a way more fancy. And it absolutely destroys this pose. Let's check everything out. So this right here is a big release, so that means I'm going to go through absolutely everything. Look at the light catching in the eyes there. Sometimes it just catches just right. Anyway, I'm going to be removing the backpack for now just to kind of check out what it's doing. And I do apologize for not trying a different backpack with this kit. Basically, from all the other things that I was doing, I totally forgot. Maybe in the Immortal Justice review, I'll try out a few backpacks. So starting down with the neck, there it is all the way down, all the way up. We've got that side to side pivot, and of course that giggity goo. So definitely a nice joint. I love these for one reason and hate them for another, and that is ball joint shoulders of this particular style. We do have forward and up and down right here, which is incredible, but the fact that this is a ball means that you do not have full compatibility with other kits that are out there. Now you might be able to trim this down to a peg and use it like that, but the last kit that I remember seeing with something like this was it the Infinite Justice or the High Grade Justice? Something like that, but yeah, that does mean compatibility is not there. However, the shoulder armor is independent, which is always very nice. This little thruster here can move it up and down ever so slightly. There is the arm raised all the way up. Actually, we can get more out of that when you actually bring it forward. Speaking of the bringing it forward, this can cross the body very nicely. We've got that full rotation at the upper arm. The elbow bend is a double joint, so it bends that far. There are no extra joints in here, so no extra rotation or extra bend in here. It's just the standard ball joint at the wrist that does all that a wrist like that does do. The ab crunch in here is nicely designed, so there it is all the way forward. There's all the way back. Once again, forward, then back. It is one of those joints that goes up and then forward, so that does mean we have nice side to side crunch as well, which is always nice for those kind of poses where it leans in like so. Nice. At the waist then we do have rotation from there to there like that. The front skirting armor is a ball joint, flips up like that. They come joined on the actual runner, so you're able to chop it in half to get them moving independently. These don't fall out, always nice. The side skirting armor is a ball joint, so these rail guns can move around very nicely. And speaking of these are a nice design. They just move up just like so, and then there's an extending gimmick right here. So quite simple compared to what we would have seen before, but that simplicity works well and the color separation is very nice. As for the butt flap, that's a traditional paralyzed butt flap. Like I mentioned, at the upper leg we have that sliding mechanism. There it is all the way up. There it is all the way down. We've got the rotation right here, which is all the way around. And as for those kicks, there is the kick all the way up to the front. Incredible. The kick out to the back, you can tell, will be blocked because of that butt flap. And just moving these up and out of the way, which you can. And they do not fall off, which is very nice. There is what we get from the splits. So pretty much the full splits, depending on if you have the joint up or down. This one, the joint is down, so you get a little bit more level to, well, parallel to the ground. Off with the leg now, and there is the knee bend. It's a double jointed bend. It doesn't go ridiculously far. It's got that kind of issue where they decide to keep that nice calf curve instead of putting a bit of a cutaway to allow that to drop into. So it is a little bit limited, not a lot. We do have these little fins in the back which pop out by pulling on this little bit, just like so. So that is what those look like. People who are allergic to C-clips, well, be sad. There's a C-clip in here, but it doesn't go forward and back like we would have seen on the Witch from Mercury kits. This is just for the side to side like so, and what a side to side it is. It feels great. There's the point all the way down. We've got a bending toe like so. This can kick up. It just feels so fluid and nice. That is probably the nicest ankle joint I've ever, well, felt on a kit like this. Anyway, let's do that thing that I haven't done in so long. Man, I don't know when the last time I checked the functional movement on the ground with a leg is. Phew, I forget about things all the time. There it is all the way to the front, so not too bad. Without the foot leaving the ground. There it is all the way out to the back. and get a little bit more if you don't mind the heel moving off a little. And then the side to side I find is extremely good for those wide-legged dynamic seed poses. Next up here, we've got the backpack, which is fantastic. Now, I will mention you can't bring the wings in anymore, so they're always at that even while relaxed. Up here in this section, I suppose, which attaches the wing, we've got full rotation as well as a flappy action, so you can get them in whatever pose you want. These little thruster segments right here, these are on ball joints, but very nice ball joints that give them quite the range of motion, adding another kind of winged element to it. We also have this thing which comes around, that's part of the transformation, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And as for the actual wings themselves, we've got this joint which allows them to move up and out like so. That moves absolutely everything. We then have this front segment which can move just on a peg like so. Same goes with this big cannon right here, so that can move up like that. And then the rest is just that joint we would have seen earlier on, which can move like that. So there is a lot of movement to this. It can really fan out quite a bit for some incredibly dynamic shapes and looks. That is so cool. On top of that, then you're able to bring all this down and bring those cannons over the shoulder in that very seed kind of way. I don't think these extend or anything like that. I think that is just what they do. But yeah, once again, that right there is what it looked like in that test pose. And this is such a fantastic posing experience. Anything that I would have mentioned before about the kind of aesthetic aspects feel like it doesn't matter anymore when a kit can pose this good and look that fantastic while doing it. So finally onto the transformation to mobile armor mode. And what it says in the manual about the mobile armor mode is, due to the nature of Compass's activities, there's frequent travel between Earth and space. So the unit possesses a convertible mechanism. It can breach the atmosphere without the shield. Now, before I actually get into the transformation to that, there is a couple of actual, I guess, poses that you can actually do with this involving the railguns. First off, you just flip up the wings like this, drop them down again to expose these big shoulder hyper impulse guns, and then they drop over the shoulders like so. We just then flip out the Viper 3 railguns like we would have seen before and extend them, and this is that ultimate Freediom pose where it's blasting off everything at once. Now there is an alternate shooting mode with this particular kit, so we're setting it back to the way that it was. All you do is bring the wings pretty much all the way out to the back like this. They extend outwards slightly, and then you bring the cannons over the shoulders just like so, for just the cannons over the shoulders, which is pretty cool. But anyway, on to the transformation. Overall, this is a simple enough transformation. First off, what you do is you throw the head backwards a little bit so it's not in the way of this part that comes over like the nose section of a plane. On the top of this, then we've got two flip out fins, just like we have in the legs. I didn't add the stickers onto these ones, that's why they're all in blue. Next up, you realign the wings by bringing them back. They drop backwards a little bit to keep them out of the way of the shoulders, give it a more of a bird kind of look, and then you just rearrange the wings a little bit. Now at this point you can actually see that the action base is kind of interfering with the legs a little bit, and that's one of the reasons there's an adapter included here. There's two reasons for it, but this is one of them. If you pop this in, then you've got this little hole you can attach the action base into so it doesn't get in the way of the legs. Next up, you just flip up these two fins in the legs, grab that shield and the sliding mechanism we saw before, you open that up, and that is to attach the beam rifle into. Now the other reason we have that particular base adapter is the shield doesn't actually attach onto the unit itself. It attaches onto the base adapter, so it's never actually attached onto the unit, so you do need this adapter to have it transformed. So it pops on like that, and this is what it looks like complete. Overall, this isn't really that bad. When I saw it first, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous looking, but it works out quite well. It's a typical kind of bird mode. This mobile armor, very similar to bird modes we see here, there, and everywhere. All the way back to the Zeta, but of course a lot simpler, like something we'd see in Gundam Wing. Now, it's definitely not a transformation that disguises the fact that it's a robot, but according to the instructions here, it's just to make this robot a little bit more, well, atmosphere friendly. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this to me is a platinum tier Gundam. It's such a good kit, you need to get it. There is only one issue, and that of course is the color accuracy. There's a ton of stickers, but like I mentioned throughout this review, I've had it without the sticker, so if you like what you see, then this is essentially a perfect kit. Now aesthetically, this looks fantastic. We don't have the same level of aesthetic details that we would have seen in some of the Witch from Mercury kits, like parts coming through from under layers, but what we do get is a very animated anime accurate and very cool looking mobile suit. And if you're a builder of seed kits, it's definitely an upgrade. When it comes to the accessories, these are very nice, but there is some color accuracy issues yet again. The shield has some floppy aspects to it, but overall everything is quite nice and does what it needs to do. Even without the colors, the stuff still looks great. When it comes to the articulation on this, it is its best aspect by far. It's so much fun to pose, it poses greatly, it's rock solid, it's so incredible, it's great. Honestly, this is its strongest aspect, and if losing some color separation is the cost for perfect structural integrity with this great articulation, it's totally worth it. Finally then, the transformation is fairly basic enough. Thankfully it doesn't undermine anything about the robot mode, and what can I say, it looks like a kind of bird mode in that usual kind of Gundam sort of way. There's nothing too difficult to it, and it's easy to do. So yeah, on the whole, a platinum tier kit, I would say it's unmissable. If you don't like the colors, you're either going to have to use these stickers or paint it, and if you do want one of your own, the link is down there in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more GUNPLA reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here would not have been possible without each and every single one of you guys, so thank you so much for watching, and as usual, special thanks to those of you who helped me out over on the channel memberships right here and on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Dashiell Marmion, Go Little Rockstar, Joe, RG59061, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.